Lamar Jackson's illness saga continues as the quarterback remains sidelined at training camp. We talk about that, the defense winning day one in pads, and so much more coming up next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much, as always, for being here today. It's a bonus episode here on Saturday and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day. Your friend available on all podcasting platforms, so we got you covered in audio form. You can follow along, subscribe over there, anywhere you get your shows, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the whole 9 yards. Also, in video form, of course, you can like and subscribe on YouTube. Today's bonus episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free on LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Ravens training camp in full swing now, almost a week in the books. It's crazy. We're kind of flying through this thing as we get geared up for the 2024 season, and really happy it's going that way. I'm really excited for Ravens football preseason coming up, and really just a matter of weeks now. We're getting closer to that, but we have a ton of content today on this bonus episode. In the first segment, we really haven't gotten into it that much, Lamar Jackson's illness situation, but things that I don't want to say they took a turn, but we did get some updates on it, some statements from the Ravens. John Harbaugh spoke about it again. Justina Anderson weighed in. So we have a lot to talk about with Lamar Jackson's illness. Then we're going to be getting into defense wins day one of pads. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about, all right, pads come on. That means a little more. So we're going to dive into what happened on day one of pads on Friday. And then we'll get into some other early training camp notes, who's looked good, who hasn't, etc., etc. So let's talk about Lamar's illness here. Again, this is a situation to monitor. I mean, we got an update from the Ravens, so they ended up tweeting this out right before practice began on Friday. QB Lamar Jackson remains sidelined with an illness and will not practice today. He continues to undergo further evaluation and receive care from our medical team. Now, this is the first statement the Ravens have put out like this, a social media statement like this, and I think a lot of people were wondering, well, this is weird. Why would you put this out unprompted? I think the reason why is because it has become such a national story, and they just wanted to, I guess, update everybody. This is not something for me where it's like, okay, the sky is falling. What's going on with Lamar? I mean, look, I've certainly been sick. I've certainly had to miss a week plus of something with a serious illness here. And we actually got Justina Anderson weighed in on the situation as well, with all of the specific testing that they're doing. And John Harbaugh talked about how they continue to run tests. They're working with the doctors. They're figuring everything out with that. And again, she ended up saying she wanted to give kudos to the Ravens for continuing to have Lamar Jackson go through additional medical evaluations to assess the root of the quarterback's illness. And obviously went into Jackson's competitiveness, has the heart of a lion. He wants to be out there. And you know, it's always smart practice to rule out anything that could potentially be concerning or chronic. And if missing practice due to the illness becomes a pattern in any identifiable manner, Lamar Jackson's far too valuable to the overall success of the team to miss time wherever preventable. And look, it's true, but this has picked up, national media waves and has been becoming a big story here. But you do want to rule stuff out, and you want to be able to just identify the root cause here. Lamar's missed a ton of time due to illness over the course of his career. This is not the first time he's dealing with something here. He's had to miss time due to multiple different things. Obviously, he's gotten COVID. He's had to miss time with this illness and that illness. And again, it's nobody's business but Lamar's and the Ravens what he actually has right now. I'm not sitting up here saying we need to know the answer. No, we don't need to know the answer, right? What we need to know is, hopefully he's going to be better. And when he's better, that's what we need to know. But we don't have to know all the specific details. That's for Lamar and the Ravens and the doctors to know. That's fine. I don't need to know that stuff. But of course, we all want Lamar to be okay. We all want him to come back, and we don't want this to pop up again for him I mean, obviously the football reason is like, okay, hey, you want him on the field, but like just for Lamar in general, right? Like this is not something you want anybody to be dealing with, especially what seems to be year after year after year after year. So if there is a more identifiable root cause, like Josina said there, it's important to just go through everything. And maybe that's what's going on right now, where they're continuing to run these tests because maybe they know what it is, but they want to go deeper and find the root of this thing because it continues to happen. And if it's an immune system issue, look, I'm not any type of doctor. I'm no doctor. I'm not going to sit up here and try to, explain all this medical stuff like I know what I'm talking about, because I do my best, right? I try to understand general medical practice, but that's not like me studying for 10 hours a day or being a doctor. That's not who I am. We can obviously talk about speculation, but I don't want to speculate too far into this whole thing, because at the end of the day, this is not something where I'm completely worried about it and we're going out there every day and just, sky is falling. Obviously, I want Lamar to get better. I want him to feel all right. It's important to be out on the field, but obviously if he's not feeling good, that doesn't help anybody if he's out on the field. And we certainly saw that when he came back to practice and tried to take the field, and that was part of his competitiveness and everything that's going on here. So breaking news, everybody, people get sick sometimes, even athletes, right? Everybody gets sick sometimes, and for Lamar, it's something where he needs to take the time he needs to get better, because if he kind of goes, all right, I'm 60%, let's go out there and practice, we obviously saw the result of that. It does not help anybody. The performance isn't there. He obviously wants to be involved, but we're sitting here talking about a guy that, does he need training camp? I think everybody needs it in a way, but to him, it's like if he were to come back, worst case scenario, like a couple days before week 1, and trust me, I don't expect it to get that far. I think, ideally he's working through this and will be back soon, but we just don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty in this whole thing, and I think that's what kind of freaks some people out here of like, okay, well, the statement was vague, and then we're getting this, and then people are talking about that, and like, what is it? But the vagueness of the whole thing, I think, just leaves a lot of people in the dark. But again, it's nobody's business what's actually going on here, right? We don't need a detailed medical report on Lamar Jackson saying, well, yes, this symptom and that symptom and that symptom, and this is going on, that's going on. We're not going to get that, nor do I really want that. Like, that's Lamar's business. But for the Ravens, getting on the same page with guys, getting out on the field and practicing, you want them out there. But the statement, I think, threw a lot of people off, because it's like, why are you releasing a statement? Why are you just not letting it play out as it is? Obviously, it's a big story. John Harbaugh is going to be asked about it every time he gets up on that podium. And, the answer will still probably be the same of like, we're still evaluating things. Lamar's working through it. He's getting better. So we know that, it's a tight to the vest situation. The Ravens will continue to practice, and, Josh Johnson will continue to hold down the fort here, but we know Lamar is the most important piece of this team, and he hasn't been out there for the first almost week of training camp. And it's something where illnesses do pop up for him. So if this is something that's chronic, or if it's something that, can be fixed with, I don't know, some sort of medicine or treatment or whatever, I think Baltimore, Lamar, they want to get to the bottom of this thing. And so they're going through all this testing and just trying to figure out what's the root cause of this thing. And if that can help him in the long run, that's great, because it means there's less of this going on, and he's obviously able to avoid those illnesses. But for now, again, it's not something that a lot of people know about. And the vagueness and in the darkness, I guess, of this whole thing is what's really throwing people off. So the saga will continue. I'm not saying saga in a bad way, by the way. It's just, it's all these different, story points here. So the saga continues for Lamar Jackson's illness, and hopefully he's able to be back on the field soon. Coming to the second part of the show, though, we'll talk about defense, winning day 1 of Pats, what happened at training camp on Friday. Stay tuned, plenty to talk about on the show. First, the show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to beat performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has it covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. All the parts needed, the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guarantee fit only available to U.S. customers. We're back our second segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Osterk here with you on this bonus episode of the show. Again, appreciate everybody for tuning in today and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day. Be sure to make Locked On NFL your second listen of the day as well, as I host that show on Mondays. We're going to be talking about, of course, the quarterback extensions we saw, which we're going to get into in the final part of the show. We'll talk about that and a bunch more on Locked On NFL, so be sure you're tuned in and subscribed over there as well. Let's talk about what happened on day one of pads, right? Friday, the Ravens came back after having an off day on Thursday, and it's just another checklist item checking that off right there. Pads. I've talked a lot, and other people I've had on this show have talked a lot about how takeaways without pads can be hard. So when the pads come on, it's a different level of intensity, different level of physicality, and to no one's surprise, especially with Lamar not practicing, the defense took the cake again. Now, there were a few interceptions, right? Ryan Mink, who writes for BaltimoreRavens.com and does a great job over there, works for the team. He does his practice notes. We'll be rolling through those just to give updates on what's going on here. So you got Trenton Simpson trying to make an impact. He's bumping Derrick Henry and flying around all over the field. And that is a great sign considering that obviously they lost Patrick Queen and they need Trenton Simpson to step up. He has that competitive fire to him, and that'll take him places, right? Obviously, he has to learn the NFL game and just get experience, but his competitive fire is going to be able to at least help him in that regard. You got also Zach Orr apparently bringing the heat from all angles. You got Kyle Hamilton, Ardarius Washington, Brandon Stevens. They all had sacks, so we know that with the Mike McDonald defense, he was sending guys off the edge. Obviously, Hamilton was a big part of that. Arthur Millette was a really big part of that, as well as kind of like those defensive backs blitzing off the edge. So I expect to see a lot of that in Zach Orr's defense as well. You also have a couple of guys on the defensive side of the ball who made an impact, who might not be like household names. Obviously, Chris Board comes back after a couple years away from Baltimore. He could have had a sack on a play, but that pass ended up going to Isaiah Likely from Devin Leary. But again, you're not just like full out just crushing and hitting guys, even when you are in pads. Marlon Humphrey has been great. Brandon Stevens also had a great practice here. He actually broke up a pass that was intended to Tez Walker, apparently playing with a ton of confidence right now, which is really big. Now, the biggest part of the pads coming on is the offensive line. Without pads, the offensive line, you can't really get a feel for the offensive line group. And again, for those who don't know, Daniel Falele is getting a shot at right guard here, which is pretty big. But you got the offensive line running of Stanley, Voorhees, Linderbaum, and then you have Falele and McCary, which is, going into training camp, I wasn't necessarily expecting Falele to get a shot at guard, but having a guard as big as Falele could be a very intriguing thing for the Ravens moving forward here, especially because I just don't see Ben Cleveland winning that job anymore, and I wouldn't be shocked if Falele takes it from him. But there were some rough moments for the offensive line, courtesy of that Ravens defensive line, including Edafe Owe, who we talked with Nikhil Mehta yesterday of Russell Street Report. He's been out there at training camp, and he said Owe has been a beast over the course of training camp so far. So if you missed that episode, be sure to check that out, by the way. But Justin Madubuike also wreaking havoc on the inside as well. Also, you have a couple of other really solid defensive performers, and I think that's really big here because the defense has been dominant. And this is an iron sharpens iron moment for a lot of these guys, including guys like Nate Wiggins, by the way, because it goes both ways. Defense sharpens the offense sharpens the defense. Tez Walker caught a touchdown over Nate Wiggins. It was a back shoulder throw from Devin Leary. And, we know Tez Walker had that battle with TJ Tampa over the course of OTAs, minicamp, and the practices before training camp. Well, he's now getting his work in on that first-round pick and Nate Wiggins. And we know those two had their battles in college at North Carolina and Clemson, those two schools. So, again, I think Tez actually will surprise some people in my prediction, and I guess this is a tease of my bold predictions, is that he's going to finish as the clear and away number 3 receiver on this team by the time the season's over. No disrespect to Nelson Aguilar, obviously, who, by the way, he got loose for a long catch as well. But I think Tez has that explosive ability, and he has a skill set that the Ravens could really, really use in this offense, which we talked about all the time. You also have a bunch of interceptions that happened in training camp, which, again, not as many as we've seen, right? I think, the defense had 6 a couple days ago just alone. I think they've had 11 so far before today. But it was different people. Everybody's had, I think, 11 different players have had an interception so far, if I'm not mistaken. It was undrafted rookie corner Bump Cooper Jr., and then also Sanusi Kane had an interception as well when a pass was deflected. So everybody getting involved in the action, which is great, great news. Because we know this secondary, look, the pass rush, it has some inexperience on it, right? We're going to be relying on guys. If you're the Ravens, you're thinking to yourself, well, all right, we got to rely on guys like David Ajabo this year, Tavius Robinson in a bigger role, Adafe Owe, can he have that Justin Madubuike breakout? Well, what goes hand in hand with each other? I've talked about it so many times here before. The pass rush and the secondary, it goes hand in hand. So if you're Baltimore, you're saying to yourself, well, we have all this dominant talent in the secondary, coverage sacks are a thing. Making pass catchers uncomfortable, that deters a pass offense. So I think it's important for, not just the stars, right? Not just Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Hamilton and all these guys, right? Not just them, but the depth pieces down low on that depth chart, being able to step up when needed, whether it is on special teams or, of course, in different packages and make an impact. So that was really big. And I think, to me, one of the big takeaways so far, which we'll get into in the final part of the show, is if this Ravens secondary can stay healthy. And I'm really talking if, because we know that there are a ton of secondary injuries that happen throughout the season. But if they can stay healthy, I think this Baltimore secondary has the potential to be absolutely game-changing for this team. Now, there also was a minor altercation, Jess Rebeck of The Athletic putting this out there, that it was between Justice Hill and Trenton Simpson getting a little chippy, gotten into it after Hill picked up Simpson on a blitz, and then Ronnie Stanley played peacemaker. He got in the middle of those two guys. And then also an update on Kyle Van Noy. He did not practice on Friday. He had some minor neck soreness, and that's why he didn't practice on Friday. So, injuries happen over the course of training camp, right? Obviously, we know that based off of what's happened for this team in the past, and there have already been plenty of injuries throughout the NFL so far, which is unfortunate. But you also have Daryl Worley, who would have had a pick 6 in this situation. So another interception I forgot to mention there, Jeff putting that out as well. So I think, to me, it's been a successful training camp so far, of course, with the only, kind of blemish on there being Lamar not being there. But for what it is, you hear the defense winning all these practices, but I think you're starting to see more offensive highlights kind of trickle in here as we get further and further into it. So again, the defense isn't going to win every single practice. I mean, maybe they do, but I'd be pretty shocked if they did. The offense is going to get some over the defense, especially when Lamar gets back. But for now, we know this defense is elite, and I think that both units, both the offense and the defense, will be better off for it when you hit the regular season going up against each other in practice right now. Coming up, though, in the final part of the show, we'll continue to talk about some early training camp notes, also talk a bit about the state of the quarterback contract, because let me tell you, Lamar Jackson's contract looking more and more like a bargain by the day. Stay tuned, a lot to get to on the show. First, the show is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And I've had a ton of great experiences over on LinkedIn, whether it's finding jobs, networking, connecting. LinkedIn is the place to be. And LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job might be open to the perfect role. And I give it a month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. Sorry for not looking on LinkedIn. You're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time and resources to hire. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We're back, our final segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher is still chopping it up with you here on this Saturday. Again, really appreciate everybody for giving me some time here on your Saturday. Hopefully a great weekend is already in progress for you. You got some plans for the rest of it here. And for me, we're going to have another bonus episode on Sunday as well. So tomorrow I'll be right back at you. More training camp updates. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Like and subscribe, video form and audio form. We do 5 days a week of Ravens content, plus these bonus episodes. We're going to have Again, live streams after every single Ravens game. We do it after every piece of Ravens big news. And new thing this year, we'll have game day bonus episodes. So right at 6 a.m. on game days, we'll have those episodes out for prime time. Obviously, it'll be just the regular show Monday through Friday. But for Sundays, we'll have that out there. And another milestone here on Locked On Ravens, we hit 1,300 episodes yesterday for the weekday episodes. I don't know how many bonus episodes we've done, but for the weekday episodes, I've been counting ever since 2019 when I started it up. And 1,300 consecutive. I've not missed one episode over the course of about 5 years now. My 5-year anniversary coming up in a couple of weeks hosting this show. So been through a lot here on Locked On Ravens, a lot of seasons, right? A lot of ups, a lot of downs, and going to try to continue that, of course, for as long as I can on this show, because I absolutely love doing it and love the community we have established. So thank you if you're an everydayer. Thank you for tuning in every day. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you for tuning in. And if it's your first time into the channel or the show, welcome in to the show. Now, a big topic of conversation over the course of Friday were the quarterback contracts that were just being handed out one after the other. Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa agreed on a huge, massive contract. And then you have Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. Guess what? Jordan Love is now the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. And that is pretty crazy. Jordan Love making $55 million in average annual value, Tua 53.1. And now you look at the top quarterbacks in the league in terms of average annual value. There are now 6 quarterbacks making more money per season than Lamar Jackson. Jordan Love at $55 million, Trevor Lawrence at $55 million, Joe Burrow at $55 million, Tua Tagovailoa at $53.1 million, Jared Goff at $53 million, and Justin Herbert at $52.5 million. Obviously, Lamar slots in at 7 at $52, and then Jalen Hurts below him at $51. Crazy. Just crazy. This is the quarterback market, though. You wanted to get this deal done as soon as you could for the Ravens. And, you know, the Eagles got the Hurts deal done before Lamar, so obviously it's a little less money for them. But really, the big thing with this is the Packers paid Jordan Love after one season, like one good season. That's a huge risk. Like, I'm not saying Jordan Love can't be a great quarterback and be consistent, but, you know, usually when you're handing out that type of money, you want it to be for a guy that has proven over multiple years he can at least have that consistency. I know there was the whole thing with Rodgers and Love sitting behind him for a couple of seasons and whatnot, and you know he got his shot last year, right? I mean, there wasn't anything he could do about that. But man, it's a big risk by Green Bay, but it just proves again Lamar's deal becoming more and more of a bargain, and this is what the quarterback market is going to be. Right? Because you have Dak Prescott, who's going to get some level of a contract. I mean, these other guys are going to be eligible as well. I think Dak is probably the next quarterback that domino to fall. But it is crazy kind of looking back a year plus now at that whole Lamar contract extension saga and what was going on there and pay Lamar, pay Lamar, pay Lamar. And this is why you pay Lamar. Because to me, I'd take Lamar over every single quarterback above him. Every single one. Every single one. Sorry, I might not have said that. Every single one. Love, Lawrence, Burrow, Tua, Goff, Herbert. Taking Lamar over everyone. So, good deal for the Ravens. This is just, again, it's business. You know, the salary cap going up, taking up percentages of your cap here. I do think eventually something has to change with these quarterback contracts because if we go on the route we're continuing to go on now, you know, we're talking 70 million, 80 million, 90 million, 100 million per season. And again, I don't know if the cap, I mean, look, TV deals are ridiculous. But I don't know if the cap's going to be able to keep up with all that, especially the percentage of the cap going to a quarterback. So for now, I mean, yeah, Lamar's deal, I mean, he signed it a little over a year ago now, and it's already looking like a bargain. So that's what it is there. But just some other training camp notes here before we head out of here on this Saturday edition of the show. I think to me, you know, the stars are the stars, right? You hear Kyle Hamilton making plays, Roquan Smith doing his thing, you know, Marlon doing his thing. There are all those storylines there. But to me, like, hearing about guys like Bateman doing well and Trenton Simpson flying around and some of these other depth pieces like we talked about in the second part of the show there, that to me is what I'm really looking out for. Because injuries happen, things happen, unpredictability happens in the NFL. And for the Ravens, this is a team that's relying on youth. I've said it over and over again. This isn't a team that went out there like last season and signed like 8 different veterans. Now, maybe they still do something like that. We still have some time to go. But for now, it's all right. Can David Ojabo step up, right? Like, I'd love to hear more about David Ojabo and kind of what he's doing. It's been all about Olafe Owe, which is great, by the way. Like, they needed Afe Owe, and I think it's awesome we're hearing about him just wreaking havoc all over the place. But like Ajabo is going to be a big player as their third outside linebacker, because, last year that was Owe. And signing Clowney and Van Noy took pressure off of him. Now Owe's in a high-pressure situation. I think he's going to live up to that, and he'll do well. But he still had pressure on him last season as the third guy. And now that's on Ajabo. And Ajabo hasn't really played in 2 seasons. And so I think when everybody's saying, well, all right, safety is off the board now with Eddie Jackson, where's the vet pass rusher? I don't blame people who say that. I mean, I think if there was a position I would add right now on this team, it would certainly be another veteran pass rusher. But the thing is, Malik Ham, what about him? He's a guy that everybody's talking about. Well, there's not enough room for him on the roster right now unless they keep an extra outside linebacker. But then you maybe lose an extra offensive lineman, extra inside linebacker, extra secondary member. So that's the dilemma here. When you talk about early roster predictions, we will get into that. I don't know when, soon, but I don't know when. When we get into that thing, it's going to be really important for us to fully figure out there's going to be tough decisions to make because the Ravens do have a lot of young depth. I don't know how many guys they can sneak onto the practice squad. I think they probably feel all right, we have to take a chance to sneak this guy or that guy onto the practice squad, but that's going to be a little harder than I think people anticipate, especially with maybe some tough decisions coming down the pipeline there. And then on the offensive line in particular there with Falele and all these guys, Rosengarten, I think Rosengarten starts, right? I've been pretty consistent on that. Pasha McCary and the coaches have talked about this too. Obviously getting him reps is important, but having him be the super sub 6th offensive lineman, I think there will be some growing pains with Rosengarten early, especially because of his size and his frame and whatnot. I think Andrew Voorhees is going to be fine. I know that some guys are losing one-on-ones to Michael Pierce in one-on-ones, and that is, to be expected. That just is Michael Pierce. But again, it's that iron sharpens iron mentality there. The right guard position, though, is the one I'm really looking out for, and I'm going to be intrigued to see how that plays out because Falele getting the opportunities right now, but is that going to stick, or is Ben Cleveland-Sala or a guy like Josh Jones going to take that role over? So I have you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, be sure to subscribe, follow along, video form, audio form for your daily fix of Ravens content here. Really appreciate the support. Coming up tomorrow, I have another bonus episode coming your way, continuing to talk about updates from Ravens training camp. Stay tuned to see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.